When somebody wants to make a change, what are you going to give up?
If you want change, you got to change something.
The truth is, so many conversations are a complete waste of time.
I agree.
When people don't have leads, they don't like their life, I always ask them, like, well, what are you doing?
People have to know you're available. They got to know that you're out there, and you got to stay top of mind. Otherwise, they're not going to think about what you have to offer or what you have to sell.
Find people who need it and then tell them what you do and introduce yourself. It's that easy.
I think this will fix 9 out of 10 people listening to this,
easy.
their problems.
All you have to do is connect with people.
There's going to be sacrifice in your life no matter what. So the question is, are you going to sacrifice your future? Or are you going to sacrifice your now?
America's backbone was built on blue-collar business grit, grind, and muscle. This is where you stop working for the business, and the business starts working for you.
Blue Collar Millionaires. Appreciate y'all tuning in for another podcast. This is going to be a good one. Action that creates momentum. Kevin, I think this is probably where most people miss it, because to create change, you got to change something in life, right? And most people never change anything.
They never make changes and they expect it's just magically going to change. The first thing, when people don't have leads, they don't like their life, I always ask them, like, well, what are you doing? What do you always seem to find? Nothing. Very, very little.
Let's say that they take an audit of their day. Most people will say they're busy, but I have, even when I've audited my life, I realize my busy is a lot of unfocused time. So I will move to this, then move to that. I'll let this interruption take place. I'll find myself scrolling on social media. I'm clicking through emails. Having conversations that are not moving the needle. They're not money generating activities. And I think that is probably the most important thing we should say is, like, when you're changing something in your life to create new change, you can't sit there and swap going to the football game with sitting on the couch watching the football game.
Right.
Like, that changed absolutely nothing. So it needs to be doing something that's going to create new revenue. So that could be getting a new skill set, that could be talking to a person, that could be doing the physical work that's producing an invoice that can be collected on. And I hear so many people say, well, I'm just busy, I don't have enough time. But I think if they really took audit, like I know you have, I've heard you talk about it, I've done the same thing. And then I'm like, whoa, there is so much time and wasting that I could be doing something to provoke revenue.
The night before, I look at my calendar. Everything's on my calendar. I have a whole, from meetings with you to, hey, I want to get these projects done. And it doesn't have to be this 12-hour day.
Right.
But you have to say, hey, this is when I'm doing this, and that's what I'm doing. And you can't start looking at texts and start scrolling social media from 11 to 12:30, I'm doing this. So you have to me, I always say, when somebody wants to make a change, what are you going to give up? Now, if you said, hey, I want to buy another business, I would be thinking, when's he going to do that? Because he already has a lot. You would have to give something up. You'd maybe have to go from 7 hours to 5 hours of sleep. Not a great idea.
Yeah.
You'd have to give up time with your daughter.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if people are honest with themselves, most people, all they got to do is get rid of doom scrolling.
Yeah.
2 hours or so much wasted time that they do. The truth is, so many conversations are a complete waste of time.
I agree.
You ever, like, I have 2 great buddies and they both have a lot of time. They're kind of retired. They have this group text going all day. And if I was involved in that, you could kill hours. But by the time I look at it, there's 181 texts. I don't read them. It's on silent.
I was listening to the game, Alex Hormozzi's podcast, and he said, I like how you say you calendar it, because you do have to block the time off. Otherwise you get broke up. So he said that he has maker's time, is the way he labeled it, and then manager meeting time. I forget how he called it. But the reason he said that is, he said, if you allow yourself to get interrupted, and when someone comes and says, hey, you got a minute, then it breaks your chain of focus when you're creating. And if your position requires creation, then you have to have that time set aside. And I think about, like, I thought I was going to be a better manager by sticking my office in the middle of everything, kind of where my office is laid out, sticking my office in the middle. Well, I've realized that I have to shut my door and I had to put mirror tint on my window because I would get interrupted so much, and then I would break focus. And so my creative time of brainstorming, the next way to market, the next post to market personal brand, to market any of my other brands. Like all of that would get interrupted. And I noticed this when I saw Saturdays when the office was empty and I would go in and work for a half day, I would be the most productive. Not only that, I could work for a half day, be more productive than a whole day. And I was on a high emotionally and mentally because I had produced so much. And that's when I got to really thinking about that broken focus. So change requires change.
I'll give you a couple things that work. So I worked nights for myself for forever. I liked it because of from 11 till, I don't know, till 3 in the morning. Like I would get like 2 days worth of work done because nobody texts you, nobody calls you, everybody's asleep. But what I did is I was like, I'm going to create this. This is kind of the reason why I use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
The people who are on my WhatsApp are key people that I want questions to, but I still have them on silent. Yeah. But all the other texts, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
So even if you have 12, when I had a lot of employees, there was only like 2 or 3 I really felt like I needed. I would have certain like tones or for them.
Yeah.
Right. And then you might want to have your mom be able to call you or your wife. But the truth is you don't need all these other people because if they message you and you message them back, they're just going to do it again. You're an easy button.
You're on demand.
You're an easy button.
Yeah.
If you were doing high level stuff, which I try to delegate all the stuff that's not as hard, I'm doing high level stuff like writing stuff you can't really delegate or you don't want to. And people come into your office and interrupt you. It is the truth. It takes you many minutes to get back. Yeah. And if somebody says, it doesn't take me anything, I talk to somebody, I go right back to work. You're probably not doing that harder stuff.
Right.
Because there's lots of tasks I can do where I can go right back to it.
Right.
But if you're writing something or creating something or writing copy for something, it's very difficult. So eliminate that. If I want to write copy for even Blue Collar Millionaire, I don't do it in my house. You see, there's a lot of people at my house. I'll go over to Whole Foods.
Yeah.
45 minutes. Boom. I'm going to knock this out. Nobody's talking to me at Whole Foods. I got headphones on.
First thing in the morning on the weekends is when I get my best copy wrote. All right. Now that we've gotten some change, what do you, and I'll say it this way as well, if there's going to be sacrifice in your life no matter what. So the question is, are you going to sacrifice your future? Or are you going to sacrifice your now? It goes back to the whole, if you want change, you got to change something. So what are we putting in our life for change that's going to produce good results? And I think we got to get attention. I heard our friend Austin Rutherford, he sat there and said, eyeballs is currency.
I first purchased this car, it paid for itself. How does the vehicle pay for itself? One of the biggest ways that I've been able to do that is by putting my Instagrams on the vehicle. So when I'm driving by or I'm parked in a parking lot, people know who I am. So they're like, man, it's a beautiful car. Let me shoot him a DM. Eyeballs is currency. That's something you got to understand.
He was talking about social media and leveraging social media platform. But outside of just social media platform, people have to know you're available. They got to know that you're out there and you got to stay top of mind. Otherwise, they're not going to think about what you have to offer or what you have to sell. What's your thoughts around eyeballs being currency?
It's so obvious to me, but it's either not obvious to other people or they don't want to do it. So I did a whiteboard call this week. Guy was a really nice guy. He's only busy like 2.5 days a week. So I was like, well, how many people did you call? How many people did you email? How many of these type? It was like 0, 0, 0.
Yeah.
Like you're just waiting. So I'm like, okay, so if you're only busy 2 days or 2.5, that means you have 2.5 days. All you have to do is connect with people.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this 1990s used car salesman.
Right.
Like pressure. Right. Just tell people what you do.
Right.
Find people who need it and then tell them what you do and introduce yourself. It's that easy.
When I think about a business, I think of it in a funnel, and the largest opening, like when you take a funnel, I've changed oil in small pieces of equipment before, and they have a very small port to pour the oil into it. So I would always have a funnel and, it gets bigger at the top. And when I think of your business, that biggest portion, that's your marketing. And this is getting the eyeballs. This is making the phone calls, putting the advertisement out there, going and doing the networking, doing the door-to-door, like getting attention, because then once you've got their attention, now you can funnel it into the sales. And this is where you've got to speak to them so that you can hold their attention and let them know that you've got a solution for whatever pain point that's in their life right now. This is also, like you said, with that whiteboarding session, I see most people outside of thinking that they don't have enough time. when they actually comprehend saying, I need to be doing something different, they forget I got to get attention. And how do you get the attention? You got to create some action that's going to get in front of someone. So that's walking through the door, picking the phone up, making a phone call, shooting a text message, sending the email like you do in your business. Like, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to see the change that you're wanting to. And that kind of leads us over into the conversation leads to sales.
Absolutely. You got to be talking to people constantly what you're doing. And what you were just saying, social media is such an easy way to do it now. And social media is better than a website.
Oh, I agree.
I check on it. Every time somebody says they don't have leads or say something, even if they're asking a question, don't you on Blue Collar Million, you go check out their profile real quick?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Almost always, I know what they think about Trump or who they're voting for.
Yeah.
I know they like silly ass memes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know some people tag them in a birthday photo, but I have no idea what they do.
Right.
If I was a tree guy, I'd be knocking trees down with video with a picture of me telling people how I'm doing it. That's how I'm going to keep your safe. Watch me put this tree right between these two garbage cans.
Yeah.
I would make it almost like a game. People would watch it, and then you'd come off an expert over your silly memes.
So that is actually an exact qualification, a qualifier that I do for my lead service that I offer is I will go to their profile. And if they do not have their business name in the about section, that their owner, president, founder, manager, whatever, if I don't see that and I don't see anything about their business, then I immediately sit there and think they're not serious. And I am very reluctant to get on a phone call with them because I know I'm wasting my time doing a sales call with them. Because if they're not serious enough to post it on free, then why would they pay for a service that's going to drive leads to their phone? They're probably not.
I'll tell you a little quick thing I used to do 30 years ago. I used to play basketball every night, and you want to play in the best kind of inner city areas, a better place. But a lot of times I was going to rich areas.
Yeah.
And I always had my Marin landscaping shirt on.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
One of these 35-year-old, 40-year-old weekend warriors that I just was scoring all over was like, that's your business? And where do you live? It was a gold mine because they saw what I was doing and then I was ready to have the conversation with them. I would sometimes follow them over to their house.
So when you're that brings us to the topic there. So how do you talk to these people? Like, you got to have conversations to be able to, now that you got their attention, how do you have the conversations? I think an amazing way is whatever you're interested in, go to that type of event or, location and do those activities, but make sure that you're sponsoring your brand and talking about your brand inside of those activities because you instantly have a connection with someone. So I'm just now considering picking up golfing because I've been told that there is so many deals that are done on the golf course, but I've never picked that up. And so I actually did a golf scramble because we sponsored a golf team and I had to fill one of the spots. Now I got out there and sucked it up.
Yeah.
But the cart that I was riding in was with one of my referral partners that sends us a bunch of leads in one of the businesses I own. And at the end of it, even though I played so poorly, we got to chatting about halfway through and we started chatting about business and he owned his own business as well. And so that was a connection point. And then he said, hey, anytime you want to go, again, I sucked it up. Okay. He said, anytime you want to go golfing, just holler at me. And it made me realize the power of spending time with someone and then finding a place of relevance to talk to them about. So if you're doing basketball, sports, if you're talking business, if you're talking philosophy, intellect, wherever your customers are at, learn their vocabulary so that you can sit on a playing field of interest with them. I had a salesperson, a guy that was looking at possibly doing my salesperson role, my business development role in one of my businesses. And he went with my current business development guy. And on the lunch that they were at, the guy sat there and said, what football team do you root for? And he said, oh, I don't like football. And it was kind of like my current business development guy and those two referral partners were really good friends. They built a pretty good relationship in the last year. And so the current guy said, what did you think about the guy that was interviewing for it? And he said, yeah, he lost me when he said he wasn't with football. jokingly.
Yeah.
But it let me realize how important it was to make sure that you showed interest for whatever they're interested in. You got to be
He
on a
answered that
playing
horribly.
field. Yeah, you got to be on a playing
You
field.
can fake it till you make it a little bit on that. Say, hey, man, I've been watching in a long time. What's going on?
That's what I said. I said, turn it around and ask a
You know
question.
something.
Ask a
Right.
question for them and let them just keep talking about it. You don't have to have the information to talk about. Yeah.
Ask them who their favorite player is, whatever, and then get back to things. But I think getting in the right environments and talking about your business. So I read this book a long time ago, Zig Ziglar, Sales Expert. His books were really good. But there was one book, and he had this little diagram, 2 fat guys and their bellies were touching. And it said, go belly to belly with 20 people a day, 5 days a week. He's like, I'm yet to meet one person that's anywhere near broke who does that. This is the truth.
Man.
You can't be. And then there was a paragraph, and you said you could go knock on doors, you could walk on things, or you could do a kind of a hybrid of everything. That's what I did. So I was like, all right, I'm going to knock on 10 doors a day. I'm going to go do the basketball. I'm going to talk to 2 guys like that. I was always putting myself, and I get the idea of like this anxiety, but remember this, interested people are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Be interested in them. Just what you said about the football.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares. I got this many trucks. And I get, no, cut all that. They'll get to that when they ask you. Just be interested in them.
Well, I think at the end of the day, most don't do a large enough test sample. So they're like, man, I tried, it didn't work. How many times did you try? About 8 or 10? Come on, like throw some zeros behind that. 100, 1,000, depending on what your action is that you're testing out. Like you need a large enough test sample to know if it works or not. Otherwise, I mean, like 20 people, you're having conversations with 20 people every day. That's going to be a massive amount of opportunity over a 30-day period.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I love about quantity. When you put enough quantity in it, you can suck at anything, but eventually luck's going to just collide with you. So you cannot know how to communicate well, zero sales acumen, marketing skill, bad eye contact, everything. But if you do enough of it, you're going to hit a person that needs you right in that moment of what you're offering, and you're going to make a sale. So if you don't have something, just increase the quantity.
And you get better at it. You can't really say the wrong thing to the right person, and you'll get much better at it. Here, I'll give you a stat on the roofing leads now. We had some new customer. They wanted to get flooded by leads. 1,768 calls, 61 leads. So basically, 29 out of 30 people were not interested.
Yeah.
And they're calling data with like X amount of years on their roof, 3-tab shingle.
Right.
So it's not like just random. So when somebody says, well, how do you get 61 leads? They got it in less than 2 days.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And you say,
that's a lot of calls.
Yeah, but most people don't talk to anywhere near 17 out of 68 people in a year.
Mhm.
So what can they expect?
Yeah.
They're doing it in 2 days. Yeah, you have systems and callers and everything, but 20?
Mhm.
20 is hard. So you could do 10 calls. You could do 5 walk-ins. You could do every hybrid you want.
I think this will fix 9 out of 10 people listening to this,
easy.
their problem. So I want to recap it. If you want change, you got to change something. If you want people to know about you, you got to get their attention. If you want to make a connection so that they like, know, and trust you and want to buy from you, then you need to speak their language. You need to talk in a manner that they can understand. And then the fourth thing is, if you really want to see results, you need to do it over and over and over again, because quantity is the only thing that's going to produce something. And more importantly, it trains you and it makes you better.
Absolutely. Great points.